So, thank you. So I'm the head of the Swedish National Data Service, which is a trusted digital repository in Sweden. And we are working very much with the universities, trying to establish structures, assisting the universities to build up this kind of competence in different ways. They're also providing, on national level, the data object identifiers for research data, so a part of making it a success story. I would like to start off with a little bit personal example of data sharing. I've been working very much with the WHO in Geneva, and this is a paper that we were able to do due to data sharing. It's rectal artemisinin, which is something you give to children that are about dying from malaria. You can't run big studies. You need to run it in the small scale, otherwise it's impossible. People would die out of control. The issue is that having small studies, you can't come up with like dosage, regimen, and that kind of things. And that's what WHO needed to come up with, telling that you need 3 tablets, you need every second hour, whatever. We were able to gather about 20 data sets. And the interesting thing is that this was not at all due to the universities. It was just due to nice, open-minded researchers. There was no infrastructures to gather the data. But it's, in a way, a kind of success story, one out of very many, of course, but quite interesting. However, what is driving the development is I would say, the bad examples. If you remember the Zika, with all the problems, people were not sharing data due to legal restrictions, also due to keeping the data. It was the same for the Ebola, and also research fraud is one of these good examples, these bad examples of what is happening and why are we developing, in a way. The funders and the publishers are moving, and that's, of course, a good thing. I've been serving at the Wellcome Trust for 6 years. Their research data sharing is not an issue, it's really a requirement, and it's followed up. You don't get your last money if you don't share your data. It's nothing to discuss, that's the way. It's also moving among very many funders. So I was in a committee for Zika at the Horizon 2020, and I would say that the University of Umeå, who is the PI of that project, they got these 10 million euros somewhere in September, not entirely based on a very clever data sharing plan, but partly due to that. So that's also a kind of success story in the Nordic countries. Based on having an infrastructure, based on being prepared of sharing the data, Zika data. Then the publishers, I mean, they are moving quite far in their plans, and they're moving fast. It's a bit of a problem, of course, that they are trying to build packages with publications, data, and they charge quite much of it. Anyhow, I think it's, in a way, a good movement, but we need to, in some way, handle it in an appropriate way. I can just add that my contribution to that area is that I will have a free dinner with Elsevier tomorrow in Venice. No, but I think it needs to be taken seriously, that we need to discuss with the publishers how to work with data sharing. This report, I'm just applauding the results. I will not really discuss the details of the report, but I would like to highlight the local level to some extent. I mean, what Sverker and co-authors have done is a really good thing. It's really highlighting the equalities and also the differences between the Nordic countries, and that's very important to remember, that we can learn quite much from each other. Something that I would like to highlight before continuing with the local level, I mean, it's really very much on the central level to come up with definitions, policies, cost-efficient solutions, everything that we need to cooperate around. But are the universities prepared? And Sverker used, or I don't know if it's Sverker, but I guess it's Sverker used bang for the buck somewhere in the report. And I think it's important to remember that the bang for the buck is happening on the local level. That's the universities, it's the researchers. And I would say that what we quite often forget is to initiate this kind of structures at universities when we discuss just the policies. We need help desks, we data stewards. It's mentioned in the report, that's very good, but it needs to happen in reality. The researchers are not aware of how to handle the data. We saw it just some minutes ago here. I mean, I'm professor in biostatistics. I have had 0 hours of training in data management throughout my career. We need the IT infrastructure. We definitely need training within the research training. Also need to train the old ones, but definitely the PhD students. And I mean, the universities, they also need their policies. There are very few having strict policies on data sharing, data management. We need kind of building up national collaborations among the universities. In Sweden, it would be SUHF, so this association that is organizing the universities. So we can speak like with one group in not each single university. We need, of course, search portals, we need storage, and storage is a really big issue here. We heard it some few minutes ago that, I mean, what people are asking for is storage. It's definitely also data management and that kind of stuff, but storage is like one of the core things here. And I will not really point in at one infrastructure, but I would like to use for MAX4 in Sweden as an example that we are building up a very nice infrastructure producing a huge amount of data. And I mean, that's really a good thing. But MAX4 and several other infrastructures, like we also have SNCC supercomputers in Sweden, there is no real plan for the long-term storage. We need to preserve what comes out, not all the data, but parts of the data. And I mean, we are running very nice research or upcoming research, and we forget how to plan. We forget that the universities don't have the capacity. So it's some kind of momentum that we are just waiting for the other one to act, and that really needs to be changed. So I just stop with this one. That's I think it summarizes what I would like to say, that I mean we really need to think about all levels in a way at the same time, and the action, the bang for the buck, happens at the local level. So everything that could help the universities to work more actively would be very, very useful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Max Petzold, and I'm very keen to, I'm really looking forward to all the results that's going to come in from MAX4. It's a fantastic project.
Yeah,
I'm going.
It's a very fantastic project.
Oh yes, oh yes. All right, our next segment is called Concerns in Opening Research Data. So what kind of concerns might there be, like inhibitors for data sharing, things that make people not want to share things? Fear of competition, being scooped, and therefore reduced publication opportunities, absence of professional rewards for data sharing, and so on and so on. Well, I'm not going to give you the whole list. I'm going to let our speakers speak for themselves here, and we're just waiting for technology to come online here. We're going to hear from people like Mikko Mönkkönen, Niklas Jareborg, and our next speaker here, Mikael Carstensen Elbeck, Senior Project Officer from the Technical University of Denmark. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So I work in a small office at the university called Bibliometrics and Data Management. And I'm the project manager of a small team working to build up the data management support for our researchers. And what I'm presenting here today is not DTU's point of view, it's my experience talking to different stakeholders at the university about the concerns on open data versus commercialization and innovation. So Technical University of Denmark is a technical university. Therefore, a lot of the things that's going on at university is applied research. And a strategy for actually getting technology and knowledge into the society is collaboration with industry. It's innovation, it's patents, it's entrepreneurship, it's spin-outs from the university and licensing. So sometimes we frame open science as doing actually the same thing, but if you're working at a technical university, I mean, this is still the main idea of how you can actually spread the results of the university for the benefit of society. At DTU we have more than 1,100 contracts concluded every year with industrial partners and companies. When you compare that to Horizon 2020 funds, which may be around 10% of the total external funding of the university, this is a much larger proportion. Every year we have more than 150 inventions at DTU. It's wrongly stated here, it's patents. It's inventions, and some of them will turn into patents. So, just to let you think about that, I want to ask a question. I don't know if the system is working yet, but otherwise we'll just keep it for the end. But one of the questions would be, what do you think is a better way to transfer technology and knowledge to society? One of the ways that the university have been working to spread this technology and knowledge into society has been collaboration with industry. Firstly, co-financed research and commissioned research. So commissioned research is where an industrial partner comes to the university and say, we have a problem, can you solve it for us? And those contracts are almost always confidential. The results will not be published anywhere. They will be transferred to the partner or to the company which is, has commissioned the research, and they have the right, which is in the contract, to utilize the invention or whatever it is. And because they have the secrecy, they also pay a lot more for it. So there's 180% overhead on commissioned research. A larger proportion of the collaboration with industry is in co-finance research. Here, the collaboration or the research should be of the interest of DTU researchers. And it is also much cheaper because DTU have to have the right to publish the results based on this research. So here the overhead is only 44%. So what are the concerns regarding to open data? So when you get into a contract with a partner, there is a background information or background knowledge that you have, that you bring into the project, and the industrial partner bring into the project. So a lot of the research that's going on in DTU, they need to have access to data from companies, insights from the company, and often this data cannot be disclosed. It's secret, it's company secrets. So that provides concerns with regards to open access to data. Also, even if they want you to give you access or to provide you the possibility to share this data, to publish this data, there might be copyright concerns that you have to adhere to. And industry partners are not too familiar with concepts like CC0, public domain, CC BY licenses. So that might be a problem. Also, when you want to publish something, they will probably have a thing in the contract saying that you have to have a negotiation with them before you actually publish something. This is very normal. Although there are all these problems, it's important not to postpone all these legal questions. And at DTU we have a number of legal advisors who work together with the researchers to do a balanced contracts with the industry. And they are very aware of the fact that they need to be able to publish, so it's an important issue. But you can't break the trust of the companies either. That's also important, because it's important to have the trust so you can actually collaborate with the companies. There's also the things that will be discovered in the project. So if there's a commissioned research, I said that will probably be something will be owned by the company or the partner that you work together with. The other way is, of course, patents. So I made this open science presentation a couple of months ago for our department. We are like 140 people. There are like 12 lawyers, and there are like 5 tech trans guys. And this tech trans guy come up to me and say like, oh, this open science, you know, our patents. And he was like very afraid. And the problem is, of course, that he's concerned that someone would disclose something before the patent has been filed, endangering the novelty of the discovery, which make it impossible to make a patent. And that's typically 2 months before the patent has been filed, so that embargo period is something you have to respect. Also, they have this other idea of serendipity. So they have one day someone will discover something from data that no one had discovered when they actually did the project. So you have to be aware of when you publish something in a journal that you're not, you know, making too many perspectives of the potential use of this idea. So, another question. Do we think there is a conflict between open data, open science, and this traditional way of commercialization? So there is a tension, that's quite clear. So the researchers, they are asked by the funders to do, you know, they have to be transparent. There's the responsible code of conduct. And if you can't publish all the data, how can you make sure that the research is reproducible? And also you have to publish with the best journals, and the best journals that require you to deposit the data today. So there are all these things the researchers are concerned about. And we have on the other side these tech trans guys, the patent guys that, you know, they want to make everything as secret as possible. So there is a tension. And then there's the other thing coming up, is like open innovation at the same time, which is sort of a competing way of making innovation to the sort of traditional linear patent way of doing innovation, which is kind of like, it's more complicated than, you know, than such. I mean, this is happening at the same time in parallel at the university. Some people are working with open innovation, some people are working with patents, some people are working with open science. It's all happening at the same time. We're not all working on one thing. So we have to consider the diversity of the scientific fields, from basic science to applied science to life science to other kinds of science, and, you know, like computer science, where you share your things even though you're maybe very applied, because actually doing patents is just like a hindrance. I mean, it takes too much time to actually get the innovation out there, so you do it openly. And also, it's a good idea for every department to have a discussion of a strategy about how they approach innovation strategy and open science. And I have a very good discussion with a Finn, actually, who's working in one of our departments at DTU called Biosustain, that he doesn't really think there is a problem if you have this discussion and you have a clear strategy about it. So I think from the EU point of view that it's a good that they changed the sort of connotation of all being sort of open to have the fair principles instead, because the important issue here is that we need to manage our data. And then some of it can be open and some cannot be open, but we need to manage our data and we need to invest in that. So in the end, most of the research that's done by our researchers at DTU, the ideas that's in patents, the ideas that's described in papers, are not worth a lot without the people behind it. So in most cases, they will go into industry if it really has to be applied. So that was my presentation about concerns on open science and open data.
Thank you very much.